Maybe you a little bit more, Dr. Mark, because it comes out of Maine, because they say a high percentage of Maine medical cannabis is contaminated, regulators say. Maine regulators are again pushing to modernize the state's medical cannabis program after a report showed that 42% of samples they recently tested contained contaminants such as yeast and pesticides. Maine's Office of Cannabis Policy, the OCP, found that 50 of the 120 samples the agency tested in this round of audit testing would have failed under the lab testing standards for adult use cannabis in the state, according to a news release. In a quote, this data indicates that Maine's medical cannabis program needs a comprehensive solution to reform and modernize the system in order to protect Maine's patients. OCP Director John Hudak said in a statement, medical cannabis in Maine is not subject to the same lab testing requirements as adult use cannabis, and efforts to change that have been met with resistance from cultivators and caregivers in the program who say their products are safe. According to the OCP, of the 120 samples, 30 failed for yeast and mold, 26 failed for pesticides, 4 failed for heavy metals, and 1 failed for filth and foreign materials. Microbutanol was the most common pesticide found in the samples, with 8 exceeding the acceptable threshold, according to the report, and one of those samples contained 293 times the allowable threshold, according to the OCP. And the OCP's report comes at a time when lab testing requirements and enforcement for the cannabis industry differ dramatically nationwide, and product recalls are common. I'd love to hear what you two doctors have to say all about this.
This is terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Microbutanol, isn't that the stuff in Eagle 20?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Eagle 20, and that's, basically sprayed on to, deal with things like powdery mildew. A lot of outdoor, just because of the weather here, a lot of outdoor farms in this area of the country get hit with a variety of different fungus, most certainly botrytis, which is kind of known as bud rot, right? Which doesn't completely make the material not usable. It just hits your yield, and your colas aren't as full, and there's all kinds of issues. But there are no chemicals that are approved to be used on cannabis, and the fact that they're finding pesticide contamination as well as all the other things, it's just really disappointing. Because I know some producers up there, and I think they make good product, but I think that again, this is probably a few bad producers who are under economic pressures to get product sold. We're just trying to get stuff out there, and the fact that the medical and adult use have different standards on testing, Dr. T, that doesn't make any sense at all. It almost seems like, I thought the way you read the story, Jason, was that the testing for the adult use was more stringent than testing for medical. Is that correct?
No, it's more stringent for adult use than it is for medical. More stringent.
That doesn't make any sense.
More stringent for it,
right?
Well,
Dr.
It
doesn't make sense.
I understand from your perspective it doesn't make sense, but from a lobbying perspective, it makes a lot of sense.
How does it make sense?
Follow the money. Just follow the money.
Help me understand.
Politics doesn't have to make sense.
Yep, I'm saying that there was a whole bunch of medical advocates that advocated because they didn't want to have more stringent requirements on the medical side, and then at the same time they're like, hey, if you want to implement these testing standards, implement it on the adult use market because it's for the general public, and then your guys' concerns are about public safety. It's pretty much easy as that.
Yep.
But those same people want pesticide-tainted cannabis.
I don't think they necessarily want pesticide-tainted cannabis in full honesty. But at the same time, I don't believe that a lot of them believe that there are pesticides or contaminants in a lot of the cannabis. And a lot of the times when these rules get implemented, a lot of the cannabis that was really, really amazing is not able to pass for some reason or another. And I think they don't want to give up on their quality of consumption.
Yeah, the question is, what are the acceptable standards, and where did they come from?
Mm-hmm.
Have we done the appropriate studies on what's good and what's bad for people to consume? I absolutely agree with Mark that I think it's ridiculous that they are have less standards for medicinal
Yeah.
users that with the potential of getting harmed. But what are these standards? How do you know what's good to smoke and what's not? I mean, most public health people say nothing's good to smoke. So, does something with a little pesticide worse than than
Yeah.
than that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
It's pretty
So yeah,
crazy.
just follow the money, man. Yeah, on the
Yeah.
adult use side, you have a lot more companies looking to enter that market and get a piece of that pie, which means a whole lot more opportunities to fund your next campaign.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. Exactly.
The SOP should be in place to basically grow cannabis free of pesticides so you don't need to use it. And those pesticides are only used after you found out that because you've cut all these other corners, you now have a contaminated crop. Oh my God, what do I do? They spray chemicals on it and they pray that they don't get caught, I guess. I don't know. It just seems like if you're a medical user, like I could think of like you were talking about the senior population, Jean. I mean, imagine like one of these seniors consuming a concentrate that's contaminated with what they said like 200 times the level of
Well,
microbutanol
I
that
think these were all flower products, Doctor. I don't think that they didn't mention that
right, but
any
assume
of
that
them were
that flower
concentrates.
product now gets extracted. When you extract a contaminated flower product, you
Yes.
concentrate that, and that concentrate can be really at that level, I hate to say it, deadly.
Yeah.
Deadly. Yeah, I was gonna say it, deadly.
Well,
Without a
nobody
doubt.
wants deadly in our industry, so
No,
that's a place where we got to work to make it better.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Do better, be better. All of those.
Yeah, you just think that, if you're a medical patient or you're going to a medical dispensary, that everything would be cleaner.
everything's going to be
It's
safe.
bad.
Yeah.
Perception would tell you that. Yes. Perception would tell you that.
Come on, Maine, get your shit together. Got any
Mm-hmm.
more comments on that one? Got anything on that one, Chris?
Oh,
Chris is
Chris just
out.
dropped. Chris just dropped. He has a meeting. He's got to run. Yes, it's time to
You know
wrap it
what,
up.
y'all? We're wrapping up the week.